YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. So I've got a special guest today, Paul Revelia. For those of you that don't know him, you should. Check out his channel. I will link it below. I'll put his Instagram handle down below as well. But we are coming at you guys with a good topic today. I think it's very relevant considering the time of year. If you are watching this soon after I release it, but we're going to talk about just kind of how to know if you're ready to compete or how to know if you're ready to go into a contest prep. So we're going to hit on, I think, a couple of main points, but what would you say, Paul, is the main thing you want to start with when it comes to if somebody comes to you or if somebody were to just ask you, I don't know if I'm ready to compete, I don't know if I'm ready to prep, what would you tell them?
First thing you have to consider are expectations, okay? Because there are so many levels to competition and there are so many reasons to get on a stage. It can range from, it's just a lifelong goal, I just want to get up there, I don't care how I place, to I don't want to do a show unless I know I have a chance to win. So it's all about setting the expectation for the competitor.
Yeah, that's actually funny you mentioned that because I remember when I sat down with you this past year to talk about competing, and you said that same exact thing to me. You said, I don't want this to, or like, I remember we set up the expectations. I remember that first and foremost.
You know, being a coach and going to competitions for the last few years, you learn to recognize who's at what part of their journey. And so I'll typically say to someone, hey, I think you have enough muscle, enough shape to be competitive at, say, the novice or maybe, top 5 in an open class. And then there's some girls that I can say, hey, right away, I know you're going to be contending for overalls, for nationals. So it's all about setting that expectation and where they're at in their journey. From there, you can create a approach that is appropriate for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And kind of what you said, stemming off from what you said about like the muscle, you being able to tell how somebody's going to do in a certain division. I think the next thing to consider is how much muscle do you have on your frame? Because even if you're going to compete in a division such as bikini, which is the smallest division, I mean, those girls still have a lot of muscle. And I oftentimes will hear girls, come to me or just random people say, oh, I've been training in the gym for 3-4 months. I'm really loving it. I'm looking for the next challenge. I think I'm going to compete. And I don't think people realize how long it truly does take to build that muscular foundation before they jump on stage. And I truly don't feel like 3-4 months in the gym is going to be a sufficient amount of time to really put on that muscle that's going to allow you to be competitive on stage.
Yeah, the tough part about building muscle is the amount of muscle that you start a prep with is not generally going to be the amount of muscle you end a prep with, especially if you're new to training. Those are new adaptations. If you've been training for a decade, you're going to retain almost all of that muscle in prep. If you've been training for a year or less, you're going to sacrifice a lot of muscle getting stage lean. So, like I said, if you have the expectation that you're going to walk into a show and win and you've only been training for 3 or 4 months, unless you have a background in athletics or sports or just some God-given genetics, most likely you're right. You're going to be getting on stage a little bit smaller, and that's okay as long as you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that this is a long-term sport, and it truly does take time. It's not something you can just do in a short amount of time, but that's the beauty of it too. So I think another good point to kind of consider if you are in a good spot to compete or prep would be where are your current calories at and kind of what type of cardio, how much cardio are you currently doing, because that baseline is going to be really important for knowing if you're going to be in a good spot to get stage lean.
Yeah, so there's a relationship between the amount of calories and cardio you have versus how much body fat you have. So the more body fat you have to lose in a prep, the higher your calories need to be to start and the lower your cardio needs to be to start. If you're maintaining a very lean physique already, you can get away with being a little bit lower on the calorie range and a little bit higher on cardio because you don't have that far to go. So the relationship I like to compare is based on calories, right? So I like all my competitors to be at 15 times their body weight in calories, right? At least to start a prep. That is a good place to be because we're going to likely get close to that 10 times body weight calories by the end of prep.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point that you mentioned. It really depends on like how much body fat you are starting with, because I think back to like this past March when I started prep with you, I was relatively I was leaner and my calories weren't, they were not super low, but I know that they weren't super high either, and I was doing already a good amount of cardio, but we were still able to prep and do it successfully. But I think those are two good variables to take into consideration, because as a coach we kind of have those two variables as like our main tools in our our toolbox to manipulate in order to get, somebody stage lean. So if you're starting from a really low amount of calories and a really high amount of cardio, unfortunately, we kind of just have to build on that, and prep is probably not going to be as fun.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we can look at is it doesn't have to be a short-term prep solution. You can whatever the person's goals are, you can get there. Okay, you can lose weight even if you're already on lower calories. We can use tools like diet breaks and refeeds, and spend times not in a deficit. It just extends the length of the prep. And if you rush the process, it's not going to be the best it can be. But again, it just comes down to the individual's expectations.
Absolutely. And I think the last thing I kind of want to cover, because I don't want this video to be too lengthy, but the last main point to consider, if you are considering competing or starting a contest prep, is finances, and also just thinking ahead of what do you have going on in your life within the next 6 to 12 months when you want to prep, right? If you are undergoing a lot of stress, a lot of personal life changes, maybe you're moving, maybe you're switching careers, something like that, I think it's important to consider those factors, because stress during prep is not ideal. And then also finances, because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it, but competing costs a lot of money. And last thing you want is to be, 12, 14 weeks into your prep and to realize, oh crap, I can't even afford this anymore.
Yeah, the one big thing I stay away from for my competitors is stress. And a lot of people don't think of stress in terms of how it affects your physique, but I promise you it will negatively impact your ability to lose body fat, keep muscle, avoid overeating, and stay focused on your goal. So 3 of the biggest things that happen in our lives that are the biggest stressors are moving, getting married, and changing jobs. If you're planning on doing any of those things, I say stay away from prep, or at least plan to take a break from prep so that you can handle something like this. Do not try to be on prep the week of your wedding, the week of starting a new job, or the week of a move.
Right, for sure. And also I think travel too. Like if you maybe have a couple of big trips coming up, I think that's something to consider too, because your prep, ideally you're gonna have to stay on track to some degree if you're in prep while you're traveling. So kind of considering like what you have coming up within the next 6 to 12 months when you're considering prepping, I think that's so important. And then again, finances. I definitely think competing is an expensive sport, but it's doable if you plan ahead, if you budget. But I think right off the bat, kind of sitting down and making sure that you have the means to do so is so important as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people get a little bit hung up on the cost of competing, but you have to remember this: if you're not competing, you're going to be doing something else. So, when it comes to the food cost, I don't think that you spend more money on food. In fact, I spend less money on food when I'm in prep because I don't eat out and I cook and prepare most of my own food. Okay, and likewise, if I'm not spending money on, my NPC card, my travel to a show, my tan, those things, I'm going to be spending money on other things. Perhaps it's a trip, a vacation, something like this. So, the money aspect, obviously you have to plan for it, but if it's something that you're excited about, these are experiences that are going to change you forever. And so, I think they're positive expenses, but you don't want to be financially stressed in prep. You don't want to be hoping you can afford your NPC card and your, entry into a show. I always suggest new competitors, find something local, find something you can drive to, limit the stress of your first couple competitions, and you can also save some money that way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, competing is expensive, but you're right. If you weren't competing, you'd probably be spending that money elsewhere. So,
well, the money I saved alone by not going out drinking, but the little things that I did, I actually noticed I started saving money when I competed. So I found it funny when people said bodybuilding is expensive, and I was like, well, for me, I saved money during bodybuilding.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's like the experience is it really is invaluable. Yeah. So that's a good point as well. Well, I think all of those are kind of the main points I wanted to touch on in regards to this topic. Do you have any last thoughts?
The whole point of these videos that Lexi and I have done, and we're going to continue to do on both her channel and my channel, is just to educate you guys. So leave a comment below if there's something about competition that you're not clear about or you want clarification on. And as always, you can reach out to ProPhysique.com and set up a free consultation to talk to one of us about coaching.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll put that coaching link too below. Again, like Paul said, comment below if there's anything you want either of us to talk about. I think we'll kind of wrap up the video here. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a good day wherever you are in the world.
Bye, guys.
Bye.